Oh, definitely not something you want to step outside and see. 70,000 bees in a tree in your front yard. A sheriff's deputy who also happens to be a beekeeper is helping to remove the bees. He's doing it for free in exchange for getting to keep the bees. Once the bees are gone, the tree will be sealed so no more bees will be buzzing around. Wow. Well, that's certainly not something you want chasing after you, but honeybees are essential to the food we eat. You've probably heard the saying, no farms, no food. Well, you can take it a step further to say no bees, no farms.
Yeah, bees are necessary for pollination, but honeybees are dying off in an alarming number. And this has a lot of farmers worried.
For years, honeybees have been dying off at an alarming rate. The phenomenon, known as colony collapse disorder, has apple growers concerned because they depend on the honeybees to pollinate their trees.
Without the bees, there'd be no apples and we'd be out of business.
Researchers say there isn't just one factor causing colony collapse disorder, but rather it's caused by a combination of factors, including pesticides, parasites, and loss of the bees' natural habitat.
That's potentially 6 apples right there.
To help save honeybee colonies, apple growers like Pete Fleckenstein and beekeepers have teamed up and are now going out of their way to take steps to protect them.
We move them only when they're in the hive and when it's nice, cool conditions. I think the beekeepers are keeping them closer to home and then making sure that they're protected against mites and parasites that can attack the hive.
Congress is also considering banning pesticides that some scientists say are harming the bees. The efforts appear to be paying off. For the first time in years, the rate of honeybee die-offs has slowed by more than 30%. And for the first time now in a long time, there's hope that the honeybee is finally making a comeback.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture reports bees' pollinating role adds $15 billion to the value of U.S. crops, including apples, almonds, watermelons, and beans.
Wow.
I never even thought about how active a role bees play. I mean, I see them all the time.
I don't think a lot of people do, especially when they're swatting at them and killing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want this thing around me. It's going to get stung.
Well, when the bees aren't in the fields pollinating, they're probably hanging out in their hives. An average honeybee colony contains about 50,000 residents. 50,000. Well, that's a lot of house guests, especially if the hive ends up in your home or business.
This piece, the lighter piece, is actually the honey that they're storing. The darker piece of comb is actually where they're raising the new bees. They're young bees, the eggs are laid.
Imagine someone invading your home and tearing it down piece by piece while you're still inside. Nearly 60,000 bees haven't been in a good mood since their hive was exposed.
And typically, honeybees are very docile, and these were docile as well, but because of the wall having been taken down and exposing their colony, it'd be no different if we knocked down 3 walls of your house, and you'd be a little grumpy too.
The bees were discovered when construction workers started removing bricks from the wall of a building. When they reached the 3rd layer, the wall collapsed and the 5-foot-long beehive was out in the open. David DeSantis always knew there were bees living between the walls.
Yeah, they would come into the office a little bit, but they patched the walls up so they wouldn't. But at one point, we used to get a lot of them in the office.
Now the bees have to be removed. Rapaski is in the process of vacuuming the bees and removing their honey and combs with hopes of restoring their hives at another location.
I'm just going to continue to vacuum off bees slowly and surely, exposing the comb. As I expose more comb, I'll cut it off.
Following through on a promise to do everything he can to make sure the colony survives. Now, that building dates back to the 19th century, and the beekeeper estimates that the bees have been in there for about 15 years, at least the colony.
Oh my, that is a long time to have upwards of 60,000 bees inside a wall. Now imagine, what if you found that hive in your house? What would you do? Well, in today's Angie's List report, we learn why it's best to call a professional.
This is a normal day for beekeeper Ross Harding.
People always ask me if I get stung a lot, and I have this really smart answer. I say, not as many times as I've been asked.
Harding puts on his suit, goes to work, removing honeybees from places they're not wanted. And with the recent and sudden die-off in honeybee colonies, many homeowners are now requesting live removal.
Live removal is really a great thing because you're just basically relocating the hive. You're not killing any bees, you're removing the entire colony and their comb. And you're sealing up that hole so no bees will return. But then you can take that hive somewhere where they're actually wanted.
Getting rid of bees is not a do-it-yourself project. In fact, last summer when I had bees attacking my kid's swing set, I called in the professional. And the reason is you might not realize how big of a problem it is until you're actually in the midst of fixing it. You might see a few bees, but there might be a lot more behind where you can't see. So hiring a professional can make sure it's done safely.
Beekeepers use 3 different live removal methods. The first is swarm removal. Harding describes a swarm as a cluster of bees about the size of a basketball that isn't attached to a hive. Another method has bee specialists using the cutout method to remove bees that have established themselves in a wall or on a tree.
I come to their house and I look for the entry and exit hole, and then from that point on I determine where the beehive is in the house. And I use a different number of equipment. One of the favorite things I like to use is a thermal imaging camera so I can see their heat signature. Beehives are like 87-ish, there's a range there. So it's a big warm spot in the house.
The third method is called trap outs. When a beekeeper wants or needs to avoid cutting into a wall or tree where bees are located, they use a trap out. Trap outs build a one-way bee escape where the bees can leave their old hive but can't make it back in. Angie's list recommends using a few key questions before hiring a bee specialist. What do your services cover? Many experts only focus on bee removal, so if they cut into your ceilings or walls, you may have to hire a separate contractor to repair the damage. How many removals have they performed, and will they remove the honeycomb? A honeycomb left unattended will melt into a sticky mess that could seep through your walls, attracting even more bees.
A lot of people, they see bees coming and going from their house, and one of their first instincts is to spray. And if you were to even just spray an entire can of bee killer in that hole, yeah, you're gonna kill a bunch of bees, and you might notice them stop coming and going for a couple days. But the colony goes way far back into the house or wherever, and you're not killing all the larvae either. So you'll kill a bunch of bees, but down here is a bunch of living bees.
Isn't that something? Can you imagine finding that at home? By the way, just to let you know, experts tell Angie's list of bee removal in a home could cost between $200 and $800.
Worth every penny.
Every penny.
Well, Jimmy, something else that you may be surprised to find out that we need: trash. Yeah, in fact, it's being turned into power right here on Delmarva. We're going to show you how it's done, how it's helping the environment, and how you can jump on board.
All righty, well, a little bit later on, we've been following the restoration of the Skipjack Rosie Parks for years now. She has now reached another milestone, and we're going to hear all about it. Delmarva Live will be right back.